If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can show somebody they are traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. A lot of people don't know that African Americans have been here since the 1700s. My family has been here since the 1840s. Our first house was on Ellis Street. Our second house was on the corner of Douglas and East Park. We had several lots there. And our third home was on Ellis Street. But you're going to learn about more than homes. And you're going to learn that through our tour guide, who's been with us since the beginning. He comes to us from Haddonfield Plays and Players, and we are very lucky to have him because he also, before coming here, was part of the Philadelphia Old City tour, right? Yep. Okay, so I want to just make a few announcements before we begin. We are able to be here today because there was a group of people who were the base of the American economy for hundreds of years. When they were released, that was cause for celebration. And our nation's newest holiday is known as Juneteenth, which is a day that marks the liberation of the last slaves who were based in Texas. So, happy Juneteenth, everybody. It's party time.
Grab water if you like. It's over here before you start.
Okay.
Take it with you.
So, grab a glass of water. I want to thank some folks who've been very helpful to making this project happen. And they are first the Haddonfield Foundation, who funded the research for not only this tour, but the historical markers that will be placed along our route. Today you'll see two of them. I want to thank Haddonfield Public Library that does all of our registrations for the tours and all of our other events, and the members of our committee who have been with us from the beginning. Commissioner Al Dansbury, whose grandmother was she the first? at least certainly was the longest serving first African American teacher in the 21st century and the longest serving teacher. And his cousin, Ms. Audrey Dix Moore, who also was a teacher, and her uncle was the pastor at Mount Olivet Baptist Church.
35 years.
35 years. We are very into intergenerational and multiracial communication here. So we have a mother-son team with us today, 2 generations. That's the McLaughlins over here. I'm looking around to see, you're Miss Williams, right? No, you're not Miss Williams?
I'm Lori.
Lori Jones?
Yes.
Oh my God! So we got into a lot of trouble when we were in elementary school.
Yes.
But one of the themes that is captured in this tour is entrepreneurship. And Lori and I used to go and sell cupcakes at the Acme. We also did caroling, Christmas caroling, and stood there waiting for money when we were children. So the great thing about this tour is that it brings people together who haven't seen one another for a very long time, and we're able to reminisce, but we're also able to encourage more people to think about returning to the neighborhood, because I think we could all agree we need a little more diversity in this town.
The Point is an area that includes 5 roads here in Haddonfield: Ellis Street, East Park Ave, Lincoln Ave, Douglas Ave, and Potter Street, and we'll walk along all those as we go today. This area, the Point, was a vibrant part of the African American community here in Haddonfield for over 100 years. Now, there's been a few references today about a lot of people look like me here in Haddonfield. When we did the census in 1950, it was found that only 2.2% of Haddonfield's population identified themselves as Black. That would account for 234 people of the total population of 10,495. Of those 234, at least 219 lived in this small area that we will walk today called the Point. So just for some perspective there, and that's 219 at least. It's likely that there were more, but through that census, that's what we learned. If we're to fast forward in time, we had a census in 2020. So where did the numbers land there? Well, now it's only 1.2% of Haddonfield's population. Now, why would that be? Well, there are obviously a number of reasons. Some as simple as deaths in the family, financial hardships due to taxation, and societal pressures. And I want you to remember that societal pressures, because we'll speak about that later on in our tour. So while in 1950 there were no Caucasians listed as living within the area of the Point, now again, many of these homes are not Black owned, and many of the businesses either don't exist or are no longer Black owned. So just a little bit of background as we go. Something else I want to mention that's not a specific stop on our tour, but is sort of ongoing research, and it's about social clubs. Social clubs were a major point of this community as well. Research is ongoing, but as early as the early 1900s, those social clubs sprouted up around here, and I'll point out a couple of those locations sort of as a little added bonus as we go throughout the tour today. This is Centennial Field, also known as Centennial Park, and this site has served in several capacities over the years. It served for a while as a natural border between this African American community and the broader population. But it's also been an important recreational facility, which it is here now. But going backwards a little bit, it also reportedly featured a Negro baseball team of the Negro Baseball Leagues at one point in time playing here. The park extends beyond what we're looking at here. There were some steps down there with tennis and basketball courts, but all part here of Centennial Field, which was also a drawing card for developers in the Haddonfield Improvement Committee. And then in 1922, the land was ceded back to the township and became what we see here today. So we're gathering up here. We'll focus across the street. You see Tarditi Commons, but we're not going to speak about Tarditi Commons. However, this is the original location of a school. This is the former site of the Lincoln Avenue Public School, and that was a school specifically for Black children here in Haddonfield. It actually was a segregated elementary and junior high school, and it replaced school number 4, which we'll talk about a little later on in our tour. It replaced school number 4 after 1923 and was in service until 1948. Could anybody guess why it might have ended in 1948? The integration of public schools. So while the integration of public schools did not officially happen until 1948, which is when this school became unnecessary, however, an interesting note is that Haddonfield Memorial High School had African American students as early as 1910, but that full integration did not happen until 1948. Now, this is not the original building, you may have guessed. However, from blueprints and drawings and even some photos, we know that this is the exact location, and that even kind of the footprint of this building is very similar here to where that original school was. This is Mount Olivet Baptist Church. Reverend Anthony Talton is the current reverend here. He is a generational pastor here. His father also being a pastor here at Mount Olivet. This is one of two Haddonfield churches primarily serving the black community. The original building was a wooden structure that would stand right here and was built in 1894 with assistance from their sister church, which is the Baptist Church on Kings Highway here in Haddonfield, First Baptist Church. This church remains active to this day, meaning it has been in active worship for over 130 years. This is the location of Miss Ross's convenience store. This is a private residence, however, for many years. To the right, where the driveway now is, there was a second shop there, and that was a TV repair shop, a convenience store, and kind of a general community hub. In fact, as we've gone through this tour, a lot of people mentioned, and maybe some of you had this experience, running here after school for penny candies and hanging out at Miss Ross's shop. So we have her convenience store right there. A couple fun little factoids about the family that owned this home is that they were related to championship boxer Jersey Joe Walcott. And the last little factoid that's just interesting about this is that at one point in time, an African prince lived in this home while attending Rutgers in Camden. This is the former location of the Douglas Avenue Public School for Coloreds, also known as School Number 4. So this is the school that I referenced earlier in our tour that was replaced by the Lincoln School that we saw at the beginning of our tour today. We see now this is a residential home, however back then it was a school. Formal education for black students began in a rented space in 1869 and then moved to the Grove School just 1 year later. The Grove School was on the southwest corner of Lake and Grove Streets. It was built in 1803 and it was a very small basic structure, so it needed to be replaced pretty quickly, and it was closed with the opening of this school and then removed around 1915. Now, this is another opportunity where I get to talk about a famous person who probably most of you have not heard of, but several of you are related to. So that's Marvell Danbury, who was a teacher. Marvell Danbury would teach in this building while living just down the road there. And some career highlights of Miss Danbury. She was the first African-American woman to teach both black and white students. She taught for 46 years, and her career included the Sojourner Truth Award. She was a civil rights leader and a civil rights columnist, and she was the founder of the Camden County chapter of the NAACP. So you may not know the name. I'm curious how many of you knew that name. Great, so we're learning some things. This man's name might be Danbury. There might be a Danbury in his last name. So yes, it's really neat to go on this tour and even today learning the connection points between all of the different people, and Marvell Danbury is a big one, again, at least in my heart. Mount Pisgah Church, which is an African Methodist Episcopalian church. I'll point out what is now the front side of it. In 2006, the building burned down and they rebuilt it and they flipped it around. And if you've been on this busy road up here, you'll understand why. So now the front of the church is here, but we'll pause on the back side and make sure that we give you a chance to take a look at that. Across the street, I mentioned those social clubs. Right here on this blank corner is where Lincoln Hall was. And we don't know the exact starting location of that, but we do know that the cornerstone laying was in 1905, and it was right here on this corner. Just a nice little addition to the tour, not even one of the 12 stops, so a little bonus. So right here standing on the corner, we're on the corner of Ellis and Lincoln, and directly across the street in this direction at 164, that was the home of Mary A. Rodney, 164 Ellis Street, and she hosted prayer meetings in her home. Those prayer meetings would grow into a congregation that would grow into Mount Olivet Baptist Church. So that is the origin place of Mount Olivet Baptist Church, just started with a prayer meeting in the home of Miss Mary A. Rodney. Across the street, over near where that American flag is, That was the location of the public bus route number 24, and for decades that was the primary resource for transportation, for employment and entertainment for this area. It had connections in Batesville, Lawnside, and transfers to Camden and Philadelphia. Lawnside and Batesville both also had very specific African American communities. Batesville, it was essentially its own African American community, located just outside of Haddonfield in Cherry Hill, over near the Croft Farm area. Just down Ellis Street was a man named Joseph W. Stockley. Mr. Stockley was a black man who owned a print shop, and in the 1880s he would sell that print shop, and with the proceeds from that sale he would buy 7 homes on Haddon Ave near Westmont, an area that became known as Stokelytown. So a bit of home ownership here in this tour. Not far from this location was also the home of Addie Lehman. Addie Lehman is a name that many Haddonfielders at least have heard over the years. He was the very first African American landowner here in Haddonfield, and he was also a charter member of the borough's fire company. An interesting note about him as the first landowner of African American heritage was that happened in 1807. However, before that he owned his home, but he did not own the land that it sat on. He was not allowed to purchase the land, so he had to rent the land underneath the home that he owned. However, then in 1807, he became the first African American landowner. But yeah, I see that the shaking heads are, I think, the right response on this one. That we got to find those dark corners of history, even in the moments we could celebrate as well. That is the Point. It's an area where there was a barber shop for the African American men in this community. So again, sort of a community hub right there at the Point, and that is where that historical marker is going to be. Today there was a ceremonial moment, but the physical marker is going to be right there. If you look in among the trees, you'll see a bench, and that is the exact spot that permanent location will go up. Hopefully by this fall, when we do this tour in the fall, we'll have that up there and we can show you real specifically. But now I want to talk about these Little League fields. I don't know how many of you are from Haddonfield, but if you are, you've probably spent some time watching Little League baseball up there. However, let's talk about the dark corners of history, shall we? In the very beginning of this tour, I mentioned that many of the homes are no longer black owned because one of the reasons was societal pressures, and this is an incredible example of that. If we were to look at the Sanborn map of 1923, we would see 9 black owned and occupied homes residing right here. Those families were pushed out. They were removed from their homes, and those homes were torn down, and now we have baseball fields. Those baseball fields did not go up until 1952, meaning that more than 30 years passed with nothing going on there after these people had been taken from their homes with those societal pressures. Why was it taken out? What was the excuse at the moment? Was it was reportedly done for new and improved affordable housing for those residents, but that never happened, as we can tell, because here are Little League fields.
I am Danielle McLaughlin, the daughter of the late Reverend James W. McLaughlin, who had a church in Philadelphia, James Spring Memorial Baptist, 1845 West Huntington Street. My parents moved here in 1972. My parents were married for 49 and a half years prior to his passing. My mother is still alive. She is 87. And she is one of 11 children.
There she is. Celebrity sighting.
She is Betty McLaughlin, Betty Willis McLaughlin. She's one of 11 children who moved to Philadelphia. Moved to Philadelphia with her mother, and they stayed in a house in Philadelphia. And my mom and my father decided to move over here with the encouragement of Reverend Bentner in Lawnside. And they wanted my mom's one requirement from my father that she would be able to catch the train to go. So my mom has spent many years up until COVID taking the train from Haddonfield to Philadelphia.
Right down there you can see the steeple. That is the now backside of Mount Pisgah Church. Again, when that fire happened in 2006, they flipped it around partly for safety. As you can tell, this road gets a little adventurous. Also right in that location was Wayman Lodge, which was another one of those social halls. And again, we're still ongoing research with that. That's a new addition with this tour here. But it was located right next to the church, and it was organized in 1893. And the name Wayman derives from Bishop Alexander Walker Wayman, who was a distinguished member of the African Methodist Episcopalian Church. And Wayman Lodge number 20's mission was to provide the community with religious, political, social, and community agency. The hall was destroyed sometime in 1964. Now, if we were to continue down this road, we would see the Batesville Bridge. And if you get a chance, I would encourage you to kind of go through a couple of things I'm going to mention here. We won't do the walk because it's about a mile before the end of this, so we'll save you that. But worth doing on your own. You see the Batesville Bridge. It's on the left side of the road here. It's a small bridge that connects Haddonfield to Cherry Hill. And it is part of a trail that led to Croft Farms in Cherry Hill. And it was part of a trail that was a part of the route that enslaved people would take traveling along the Underground Railroad. So if you're to head to Croft Farms, there's a lot of Underground Railroad history there, and obviously all throughout New Jersey. But that one worth mentioning, the Batesville Bridge. Right up on the intersection here, if you've been around for a while, you might think of Crest Liquor. That's no longer the place, but what we're going to talk about is going way back in history to the Blazing Rag Tavern, which was on that location. The building that's located there now is the former location of the Blazing Rag Tavern, which served all races in the late 1800s. If you were to continue up Crescent Road about 3/4 of a mile, if you're familiar with Whitcraft Farms, a little farm stand up there, well, that was originally known as Gladys's Market, named for Gladys Harmon Doe, a black woman who lived and owned land here in Haddonfield and operated the Batesville gas station as well as a farm stand right there. And that would serve the people of the Point as well as Batesville. So again, a lot of community right here in this area, like very adjacent to each other.
We gather to recognize the lives, the families, the community that made this corner of Haddonfield their home, a community that has long enriched this town and now rightfully honored in our public memory. This marker stands as a reminder of resilience, of belonging, and of the contributions of Haddonfield's Black residents across generations. And just as importantly, it signals our commitment to seeing the full picture of our town's history. I want to thank the Preserving Black Haddonfield History Project, the New Jersey Historical Commission, and the Haddonfield Public Library for their leadership. I especially want to acknowledge the descendants and legacy families whose memories and records are the foundation of this work.
So on behalf of the New Jersey Black Heritage Trail team, I greet you all in celebration of liberation, legacy, and African American resilience. Thank you to the Preserving Black Haddonfield History Project, the Borough of Haddonfield, the Haddonfield Educational Trust, and the Human Relations Commission for coordinating and supporting this program. Thank you to the families represented here who laid the foundation for Black community building and thrived despite disenfranchisement and exclusion. And thank you to those of you who came ready to not only acknowledge our past, but also contribute to pushing things forward. I am the project manager for the New Jersey Black Heritage Trail. The New Jersey Black Heritage Trail is a program within the New Jersey Historical Commission, an agency within the Department of State. The last legally enslaved person in New Jersey was not emancipated until January 23rd, 1866, when the state finally ratified the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the last state to do so. So think about that. Gradual emancipation in New Jersey was established in 1804. The Emancipation Proclamation was delivered in 1862 and took effect in 1863. Juneteenth celebrates delayed emancipation of enslaved Texans in 1865, but New Jersey's last legally enslaved person was emancipated in 1866.
The desire to be seen and heard is natural, but for certain groups, it has been mostly elusive through traditional media and mainstream historical reserves. Since its founding by a group of Haddonfield Memorial High School alumni just a few years ago, the Preserving Black Haddonfield History Project has been ensuring a long overlooked group of African Americans finds consolation, validation, and proof their lives matter. This project has been recognized for modeling the way during a challenging period in the history of our democracy. In acknowledging the commonalities between the residents, their descendants, and the neighbors, the Preserving Black Haddonfield History Project is building a stronger and more harmonious community. Welcome to Black Haddonfield.